Hello, my name is Josue Peralta. I'm here today joined by my sister Abby and my buddy Mike. How are you guys?
Good, how are you?
You're good?
Doing pretty good, other than my bum ankle. But that'll heal pretty fast.
No, I was struggling super bad after I got off work yesterday morning. I was like having all types of allergies. It was ridiculous. I was just in bed all day.
That's hard.
That is the worst.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you back.
Still kind of recovering right now.
Dang, buddy, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, but it's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Benny's happy.
Yes, he looks happy. Question for you all. Let's start with you, Doc. How would you describe yourself to someone who's never met you?
I would say I would describe myself as a real person in the way that, like, I say what I mean and I mean what I say. Very straightforward to the point. Don't take it personal. It's just me. And yeah, just someone who likes to just explore the world, whether it be through thought, through travel, just getting to know someone else.
How about you, Mike? How would you describe yourself to someone who's never met you?
I would say first thing you probably realize about me is like I'm kind of like a jovial person, like to joke and say funny things and make people laugh. But I'm also at the same time a deep thinker. Mm-hmm. I like talking about things in the world that matter, and I like thinking and digging into like I don't know, just like things that make you like change your perspective on stuff. I don't know, just kind of like a deep thinker, but funny, and then like exploring and doing things like that. So for anybody who's interested, catch me on Instagram. No.
At Hughes.
At Michael Hugs.
Michael _
Michael Huggies.
That's hilarious. For me, I think I'd keep it really simple. I say, hi, my name's Josue. I'm a photographer. And then just kind of go from there. I feel like revealing too much right off the bat kind of kills part of the excitement. And then also, I feel like just saying photographer fills in a lot of holes. So, like, I'm an artist through that. Most photographers have their own business, so you can infer that. So I think just keeping it simple for me, I think would be good. But, yeah, I like that question, actually. But anyway, today's episode is called The Game. And I kind of want it to be I want it to be a deeper discussion on what the dating scene currently looks like from our perspective and what one can expect going into it. So last week we talked about the mindset before you go into it, and this week I want to go into, again, what it actually we feel it looks like. And then next week, our final episode of the season, I want to talk about preparing ourselves spiritually before we date. So, Mike, can you believe the season's wrapping up? It's really fast.
It's wrapping up?
It's wrapping up.
Yeah. It's almost
That's crazy. This will be our 11th episode, and then next week will be 12. It's just crazy. I'm so glad we started this. But while we get started, I guess I kind of want to ask you guys, what do you feel like the dating game looks like from your perspective, Mike?
From my perspective?
Yeah.
Not good. And, I just think we kind of talked about it in some previous episodes.
We kind of briefly touched on it on the pilot, but I kind of want to go into it a little bit more deeply here.
Okay. Well, let's think, about what dating, is. It's just about like, getting, to meet people, casually a lot of times. Trying to see if there's anything there, if there's a spark. But I just think because, of the way the world is right now, where, interestingly enough, actually, so a couple days ago, we went on to the community where I live in West Bend because, we have this program, that we're doing at my church, and we're inviting people. And we go knock on doors, give brochures. And after I invite them and tell them what we're doing, I tell them, like, hey, we're also doing a survey on mental health in the community. And I, ask them, I tell them, like, first of all, like, mental health is a big issue in America. And I specifically said anxiety and depression are two of, like, the biggest issues. And I asked them, what do you think is the main issue, or why do you think there is such a problem with those? And a lot of people, I think most people cited social media and like internet and stuff like that. And, looking at our generation specifically, like social media, like drives everything for the most part, and it drives our interactions with people. It drives our perceptions of people. It drives, like how we, want to, show ourselves and things like that. And so I think, especially with online dating now, and you can go on social media and stuff like that and do it. I think it has changed how we, first of all, like, communicate with people. It's like a lot of people don't have those social skills. So dating, a lot of times, is awkward for a lot of people because I feel like they just don't know how to, just talk and communicate and get to know someone anymore. Where with social media, because we're on there so much, we have phones and stuff, texting, it's super easy to, disassociate yourself. And, if a guy's trying to, like, talk to you on there, or a girl's trying to talk to you on there and you're not interested, you can easily just, like, ignore, or, there's other things, like if you're talking and, you're trying to say something funny, but, it's hard to do that through a screen because, you don't have the facial expression. You don't have, like, all the other body language that's associated with that. You can make things come off the wrong way. So I think a lot of that also, affects it. And it's just like, I think because our world is so driven on that, it's just made, like, dating a lot harder because a lot of people by default are more introverted. We kind of talked about how it's weird to even just go up to someone and say hi. People just think it's weird to do that these days. Yeah. And so, I think part of that, and there's other reasons too why I don't think the dating game is great anymore. Or, at least going off of based off of my parents, specifically my mom told me about, and the older generations, they didn't have all that. So you had to, like, get to know people face to face. So I just think because of that, it's just made dating harder. And then also we have expectations that aren't realistic, because we see all these things, pictures, images.
Yeah, we talked about that last week a little bit.
So I just think it's just all makes dating, it's kind of like a toxic thing, and I'll just leave it at that. There's more, but, yeah.
What do you think, Doc?
I think, going off of what Michael's saying, I see the dating game very lonely in the sense that we all want someone, like Michael was saying, but at the same time, a lot of us are lacking social skills. So I see a lot of people who are going on dates, yet not knowing how to communicate or express their needs. So it's just kind of this two people together, yet alone. So I think it's just the game is very lonely. And because of that, because it can be toxic, like Michael was saying, sometimes you kind of have to redefine it for yourself and kind of choose what you want it to be. Because if you ride with whatever it is looking like right now, you're not going to do much. You're not going to get anywhere.
So define what it's looking like right now in your head that you're not going to get anywhere.
For example, like if you just look at it as like what everything that what Michael was saying, you're going to be pessimistic, your energy is going to be lower, everything like that. But like if you define it for yourself as to like, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to put out there, you kind of drive that energy yourself, even though the reality may be different. And then that energy surrounds you, and then other people, hopefully the right people, will be able to catch on to that. Because not everybody is in that toxic dating mindset right now. You know, there are intentional people out there, so if you get that mindset intentionally yourself first, the likelihood of finding other people who have it can be higher.
So is your feeling personally as pessimistic as Michael's?
Personally, mine is not pessimistic, because personally, I just need one person. I don't need a whole bunch of options. I just need one. And even though I haven't found that person yet, like, I'm doing what I can. And even though there's like people out there don't know how to communicate that I may like, they're not good for me right now anyway. So I'm not going to dwell on that. So it's more optimistic in a way.
Are you asking from a specifically Christian perspective, or just like in general?
Yes,
like
Michael. The Christian Adventist
Okay,
perspective.
I wasn't sure, because then I might have said something else, but
Okay.
I mean, it's what I said still applies.
Yeah.
So.
It still applies because
Yeah.
it's just lonely, especially because there's barely any girls, there's barely any single dudes. So it can be hard.
I mean, personally, I'm generally optimistic and a little hopeful even. Maybe it's just my experiences that have been leading me in a way that makes me feel hopeful and expectant, I guess, and optimistic. But truthfully, I kind of see, like in the Adventist space specifically, a void of like real men standing up and being just men and dudes where they lead. So I feel like if you're one of those guys, which I feel like I am, you have nothing to worry about, because I feel like godly women want godly men who can lead them to heaven. So if that's you, I don't know what the issue is in terms of, generally speaking, let's put it that way. I mean, I'm sure there are, of course, obstacles, which, like, my main obstacle right now is availability. Finding the time, number one, and then number two, the availability in terms of, like, there aren't anywhere we live. So I would have to travel a lot more if I really wanted to make that a priority.
And that's a good point, and that's why I asked, like, specifically, like, are we talking about more Christian perspective?
Yeah,
because
good call.
If we're, no, you made a good point, because if we're thinking like, about dating from a Christian perspective, like, dating isn't really something, if we're like a godly person and we're looking for a godly woman or man in our lives, that's not going to be our main concern. Our main concern is being that godly person, and being that godly person is serving God. And so dating isn't going to really consume us, because I feel like dating, like the term dating, to me, it means like casual. It just means like, especially the name of the episode, game. So, it's just like, going to this person, to that person. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like, I think it can definitely, I think it can be a slippery slope. Like, if you're just kind of, going from one person to this person, you have like some girls or some dudes say a roster of people, that they go out with. I'm a huge fan
of that term.
Oh my goodness.
It's hilarious.
But, yeah, like, if you're really focused on God, then, dating is not a thing. You're looking for like a life partner, or you're just waiting for that person to come into your life as you're serving God. And if that person is a godly person and they see you as a godly person as well, then it should be easy. It should click. It shouldn't really have to be a game. It shouldn't really have to be,
it doesn't necessarily have to be easy. And I was just going to say that
everything is relative. I'm not saying there's going to be issues, but I'm just saying, like, everything is going to just, I feel like, click and mesh together
easier.
Yeah. You're not going to have like so much, I guess, concerns and so much apprehension and anxiety about, this person that you're potentially wanting to have a relationship with, because, you're going to be grounded in God. So it's not going to be, no pressure on your part. You're just be like, okay, well, this person, if they're really, a godly person, then, it'll work.
I was going to say that. I call it the game on purpose, because I don't like the term the game.
I don't either.
It's not supposed to be a game, but it's treated like a game.
It is, yeah.
A lot of times. And when you treat things like a game, most games have a winner and loser when you're supposed to be looking for two winners in situations like this. So when you have the mentality of, oh, I have to win something, or I've just been losing at this dating game for such a long time, et cetera, you can start to, get a mentality of, oh, I'm just one of the losers and only this type of people win. Only the beautiful women get someone who, get the guy that we all want, et cetera, et cetera. So disabusing our minds of it feeling like a game will, I feel, open us up to experience it in a new way, to where it's not just winners and losers, but it's more of an experience that everybody has to go through. And I mentioned earlier that, I don't feel like, godly men have anything to worry about because,
you're grounded in God.
Yeah, exactly.
You're putting your trust in Him.
I feel like one of the issues I do see is that apart from there being a lack of men, like I mentioned earlier, like godly, just truly men, I feel like there's also an equal amount of lack of godly women out there, to where they just don't know what that looks like. So the role models that they perhaps don't see in church, they start seeing in pop culture, they start seeing in the streets, in school, and then if you bring that attitude into the church and into Christ-like dating, you're gonna encounter a lot of issues that you otherwise wouldn't, because there are a lack of role model women and men in the
But
church.
I guess I would say that I think there are more godly women than there are godly men, just for the sheer fact that there are more women in the church than there are men in general. So just looking at it purely numbers, the odds of there being more godly women are higher than there being godly men.
It's true, which means that the odds are in the guy's favor, right?
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah, because I mean, if there are
because
there's more of you,
more girls, but yet there's little guys.
Right.
Well, I feel like I kind of look at it differently. I feel like the numbers, because I feel like there's less. Well, we know there's less men in the church, so I feel like, if a guy is there, I feel like the more likelihood of him being a godly man is higher, because just
because he's there.
Because he's there. There's not a lot of us there, so like, why is he here? There's not a lot of men to begin with.
With that said, what would you guys say are some of the main obstacles that you're personally encountering in the so-called dating game currently, Esmeralda?
Well, the first obvious obstacle is the lack of men. That's a huge obstacle. Single men within the age range that I am in, especially because there's more younger guys than anything, and the guys my age,
at least around here.
Yeah. So that's the biggest obstacle, I would say. And then the second obstacle would just be an openness to actually being vulnerable and honest about what you want and not hiding it. I feel like in this generation and time we're all lonely, but yet we don't want to. We all say we're lonely, but like it's said so much, it's not really being vulnerable if you say you're lonely. But we don't actually vocalize beyond that. So I think that's also another obstacle when it comes to dating, being like real and vulnerable.
What about you, Mike? What would you say is the biggest obstacle that you're encountering and that you feel is in general?
I feel like that I'm encountering, like it's Christian and specifically even Adventist, but I feel like, Christians, well, I would say more Adventist, but I feel like a lot of men, and you kind of mentioned it, like there's not a lot of men in the church. And I'm not just talking about like just because you're, a guy, your DNA says you're a man. I'm talking about like a real man, like, a man,
A man's
I
man,
feel
yeah.
like in my experience, if you're a Christian, right, and not just a Christian, I guess Seventh-day Adventist Christian, you don't drink, don't go out and party hard, don't cuss, don't I don't know, like don't be casually dating and stuff, not having, sexual relations with women, not fooling around and stuff like that, right? I feel like a lot of the world, including Adventist women, in my experience, not all of them, but, I feel like a lot in my experience, they kind of see you as like soft or weak. And so it's like unattractive.
Okay.
And so it just kind of like makes it hard from, my perspective, like, wanting to be that godly man. And then, you're putting yourself out there as that, but you're in return because you don't have those experiences. You're not that type of guy. You're not like kind of loud and boisterous, but you're more, temperate, trying to be like Christ. You're kind of seen as weak, soft, more feminine. And so
That's
it like,
fair.
yeah, it kind of makes it hard. And so like women see you as that. And so they, like they don't want that. And they want to go to the guy who's kind of, more like that, more edgy, as my mom will be saying. And so yeah, and a lot of times majority of those guys are out of the church,
Yeah.
And so like I feel like that's what makes it harder.
I feel like a lot of guys, while that may be true, I feel like a lot of guys confuse being a nice guy for being a good guy, and those are two completely different
I feel
things.
like a lot of girls do that. I feel like a lot of girls feel that way. Like they don't want the good guy. They want the I'm not saying they don't want to like be treated right, but they want the guy that's got all these experiences, that's kind of has that kind of background.
They want a guy to lead. So if you're docile and inexperienced,
I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I said like not drinking, not cursing, things like that.
Why would that be weak?
Huh? That's in my experience. Well, that's kind of how it is. Like, just like you're more
It's kinda like
temperate.
that.
Like you can be a good leader and not be loud.
Of course. Yeah,
Okay.
there are a lot
Well,
of people.
that's how I feel like it is.
yeah.
And
But maybe it's just a human thing where,
well, hold on, let me finish. Because like, I've been to a public school, public high school, public college, and I had a lot of friends that were girls, but I felt like, because I wasn't that type of guy, like they were looking elsewhere, or it just didn't work out. And it didn't work out for reasons of some girls that I liked, because I was Adventist Christian, and I didn't do certain things. Yeah, so it just didn't work out. But I feel like even in the church, like I feel like if you're not that kind of edgy guy, then you're kind of seen as soft.
Thoughts, Doc?
That's how I feel.
I disagree. Personally, I don't see it as soft, but that's interesting.
Or why? Or walk me through why you say it's soft, or like, has a woman told you that?
Yeah.
Or just by the looks, kind of like the vibe that they give off is more of like a best friend, like tap on the back, pat on the back type of treatment.
I've talked to other guys who are devout Christians like that, and I just feel like they've also had those like shared experiences where they liked the girl and didn't work out, but like the guys that they went after were kind of like the guys that were like Christian but like kind of like on the outside a little bit, 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. And and maybe I described it bad by saying like like cursing and things like that, but I'm just like I'm just kind of like that's kind of the way I see it, because like if you're 1 foot in and 1 foot out, those things, and not everyone's perfect, but I just feel like more girls kind of tend to go to that kind of guy, because I just feel like our perception of what a strong guy is kind of seen with that type of behavior or that type of guy, just
It's interesting that
because it's just like that's what we see in television.
I guess
see
maybe
in the
I'm
media.
just missing the equivalency there, personally, because because I will say this, I feel like women do tend to sift out guys who they feel like they can trust, in like, I guess a guy who just checks off those boxes but doesn't have any characteristic or anything about them that stands out is gonna not stand out, and you're gonna fall by the wayside. I don't know. My thing is like, if you're a good Christian boy, good Christian guy, just
start seeking good Christian girls.
And
because a lot of the times I would say that those good Christian guys don't want that good Christian girl. They are looking for that girl who's looking for the guy who has one foot in, one foot out, because she herself has one foot in, one foot out.
True.
Why don't you look at that girl over there that's singing in worship and is appropriately dressed, however people say that, like, look at her, like, like, stop pining over something that doesn't even want you.
All right, with that said, how are you guys noticing any trends in the dating game, or I should say the Adventist dating game, for lack of a better term? I feel like a trend that I'm seeing is more impersonal and cold. Like you said, we live most of our lives in social media, to where we tend to live through it now. I mean, social media now acts as your, like, interpersonal, what's that called, resume, where if your social media isn't developed, people can't vet you from afar. So someone can tell, oh, Mike is great, but when they go to Mike's page, you can't even access it because it's just not available. So that's one thing. And then another thing would be that, again, because we tend to hide behind social media a lot of times, we tend to rely on it, and it acts as a form of phony connection. So just because you have someone's number doesn't mean that you connect with them. Just because someone follows you on Instagram doesn't mean that there's a sort of connection there. And I feel like the more the more that we lean towards social media, the more impersonal and cliquey it will seem in person, and it's starting to seem in person.
I mean, we always want to blame social media on all of this stuff, but I feel like it's been developing for a while, of the whole impersonal aspect. Because, back then you would say hi to people, but it would just be like your face, like kind of just like what you present to the world. Like, you're still hiding. It's just you're talking emptiness. So now we're not talking emptiness anymore. We're just hiding through social media. So social media is not the only problem. I just feel like as sin endures more and more and develops more and more, that has impacted our coldness, because the Bible does say it, our hearts will grow colder. And that's not social media, that's just sin. So
just social media accelerates that, maybe.
It definitely does. It's a big part of the equation.
So I think a trend that is as old as time is not to show interest or show that you care. At least don't be the first one. They say don't be the first one to say I love you. Or that's a trend as old as time, still to this day, and I feel like it's more perpetuated since we are talking less.
It's true.
I feel like
because the less vulnerable that we are, the more risk that we take on, because we don't share personal things anymore. So there isn't that exchange of, like, even small risks of who you are in there. So then you try to hide your cards, and that's not really helping anybody.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like the Bible says that as we get towards the end of time, when Jesus comes, he says the love for man will grow cold, and then he says people will be, or he says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the end of time. And he says people will be marrying and giving in marriage. And so I just feel like, especially what I've seen, I just feel like, dating is becoming more and more about me and, like, my feelings and what I'm going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Instead of, like,
what can I be together,
or what can I give to this person? Like, it's just about me. And so I feel like a lot of people, just use people as, I don't know, just like pure, entertainment, or just pure, like, or just something to get by on. We have guys that, simply want women for their bodies, and that's nothing new. But I just feel like, it's becoming more and more of an issue now, because
even
a lot of people, even in the church, because, a lot of people, they have relationships, or they're married, and then there's something going on behind the scenes, and then there's people there who are with someone, and they all of a sudden have a kid, and now once the kid gets into the equation, somebody leaves, or I don't know, there's just a lot of things that I feel like it's just showing that people really don't care about you, even if like at the forefront, it looks like they do, which is scary, you know? And so like relationships are one of those things that really, like, when it's a good thing, it's great. But if it's a bad thing, it can literally kill people. Like, it's like, you know, the heart is something that we should not play with. Yeah. And I just feel like, you know, talking about anxiety and depression, most of the times when I get a psychiatric call and it's a girl who's like a teenager, 90% of the time it's relationship related. My boyfriend left me. He cheated on me. Something like that. And then and then they go on the villain arc. then it's like, then they start that cycle of being that way to people. Hurt people. Exactly. And so I just feel like you see it more and more and more. Yeah.
And I think kind of piggyback off of what you were saying is the fact that, I asked you guys to compare and kind of contrast modern worldly dating to dating in the Adventist world. But in some parts of Adventism, they're one and the same. Yeah. In a lot of parts, they're one and the same.
I feel like they are one and the same because what it means to be in a relationship is not being taught from a godly perspective. So all the knowledge you're getting is from the world.
Well, I mean, how many of our...
So then how are you supposed to date with a godly mindset in a worldly game?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but that's the thing. Win. You shouldn't be in a worldly game. Everybody in the church should be in the biblical game.
If we were serious about like godly dating, then we wouldn't date until we were like 21 at least.
Agree to disagree.
No, but I'm saying like, dude, we dated people dating in high school, like what, like 15, 14 years old. Dating each other, like that's not godly at all.
I think
and a lot of us, and that's a very common thing in our church because that's what the world does. So you know, a lot of us, we have our first like intimate relationships with, you know, people
younger
by like the time we're like 14, 15, 16 years old. That shouldn't be there.
Yeah,
so it's very like, you know,
that
worldly.
goes to show lack of education. Hence, it's pretty much the same.
Well, like just a lack of teaching young people about God and relationship. And then when we have parents that do push that, they're seen as like, oh, too strict, or your parents are like crazy or something like that. So it's just like, well, I mean, it would sound crazy today to like say, you know, if you heard your, you know, friend tell you like, my parents didn't let me, you know, date until like after I went into college. So
I feel like sometimes it's hard to be, especially in the church that doesn't educate its members, as a parent who's trying to, you know, keep their kids sane and, you know, like in the paths of the Lord. It's easy to go on the very strict side, on the very extreme side. Since those parents are very few and in between who like don't let people date, I feel like a lot of the times those parents are very, very extreme as to how they go about things. And instead of being like, you can't just say you can't date until you're like 21.
Instead of educating,
but rather
you just say
educate your kid as to what you're going through right now, like what the value of what dating is, and then.
So you wouldn't tell your kid not to date until they're 18?
I don't think so. No, but really? I'd rather put the emphasis on what dating is and the heavy weight it is, and the responsibility that it carries.
And why waiting till you're a little bit older is beneficial towards that end goal.
A lot of the times you tell your kid no, he's gonna do it, especially a teenage person. So trust. What does the Bible say? Engendra tu hijo en los caminos de Dios.
Guide your
child in the ways of the Lord, and when he's older, he's not going to
stray from it.
And the Bible also tells us to not spare the rod.
Exactly. That's why you whoop your kids.
Exactly. So I don't have a problem if a parent tells their kid, no, you can't date until you're 18. I won't allow you to like have a boyfriend. Not saying they can't go out, but I'm just saying like this boyfriend girlfriend thing is not going to exist.
I think maybe you have a point there, but if you stop there and don't include education.
No, I'm not saying not educate. And I see that in a lot of, you know, parents growing up, like, you know, it's just no. And even I, as much as I love my parents, I've experienced that as well.
Yeah.
Where it's just, I'm pretty sure we've all experienced that, where our parents just like, no. And we're like, why? And sometimes that's for a good reason, you know. Sometimes, you know, it's just like you have to trust your parents because they're your parents, and you know you believe that they love you. You know, and being a military guy, you know, a lot of times we get orders. Most of the time we get orders, we don't know why, We have to follow that. And in combat, that's very critical because it could be a life and death situation. Like if someone,
if you're questioning stuff.
Exactly. If you're on patrol and the guy who's leading the patrol tells everybody to stop, or they give the command to halt, right? That can be a life and death situation. Somebody could, you could be in a minefield. You don't know. And if you keep moving, you could, the whole platoon blow up.
Now, just the random question: does halt mean like stop or stop and duck? And
No, halt means don't move an inch.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like freeze. If your foot is up, keep it up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what it means. And then there's the other one where it's just like,
keep 2 feet down at all times.
Yeah, right. Well, sometimes you can't. But there's the other signal where it's like, hey, stop. Find cover. There's that. But if you see freeze, that means freeze. Don't even look around, don't breathe, because you don't know. Somebody saw something.
That's true.
So
that's how tight we need to be taking orders from God.
Exactly.
Halt.
And that's what we see in the Bible. God told the Israelites to step out in faith many times, literally to walk in the middle of the sea.
Yeah.
The Red Sea.
Multiple times.
Yes.
The Jordan and the Red Sea.
Exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
And I can't swim. Imagine me there. I'll be like,
no.
No.
What kind of people do you think others and you will encounter in the dating space?
All types. What do you mean by that question?
Like there's different kind of people that you meet, right? So I actually made a list of 8 of them.
People you want to meet, or people that you
that people you will encounter in the dating game. So for example, I put you're gonna encounter a newbie. A newbie has no dating experience whatsoever, super fresh, doesn't have any sort of idea, usually, if they haven't been educated, usually has no idea on what to expect from what a relationship looks like, what approaching someone looks like, and they're just wide-eyed, fresh, bushy-tailed, and there are girls like that,
and
who
guys.
just and guys who just don't know anything. I have one here that's kind of comical for me. I have the homeschooled, which are they're not even just not, or I should say, they're not even newbies. They're usually unaware of cultural dating norms. So
it depends on which homeschool people you're talking about.
Yeah, or just a
lot
of
homeschoolers
norms
that are very
well cultured.
It all depends how the homeschooling experience.
But
went.
I mean, if we're speaking in generalizations, then yeah, most homeschoolers.
And then you have your pastor's kids.
Yeah, I missed that. That's a good one. Walk me through that, or walk the audience through.
Pastor's kids are the ones you gotta watch out for.
They're just a special type of human, I guess. Who
walk me through the guys and then the ladies.
I feel like the guys are womanizers usually. PKs or people studying to be pastors are very womanizers. And then the girls, I feel like I don't even know how to. You tell me. Loose? You like pastors' daughters.
Damn, that's true.
You said that. I didn't say that.
Yeah, I mean, for a while there, it was scary how, I would just meet a girl and she just would so happen to be a pastor's daughter, and I'd be like, I have a type, and I didn't even know it. They tend to be either a little loose, and sometimes frivolous, but other times they hide behind their daddy, and they don't know how to kind of step away from that.
All pastors' kids hide behind their daddy.
No, not all of them.
No, and specifically with women.
I think a lot of them.
Different.
There's a lot that try to go far away from their dad, and then there's those that try to stay tucked away.
Yeah, there's only those two extremes. There's nothing.
There's nothing. There's rarely any centered.
And then you have your types where, we know one where her parents were just so darn strict that she just went completely into left field, and I think she's still Christian, though at least her Instagram doesn't show it. Let's put it that way. I don't really know her that well anymore, I should say. I think you'll also meet what I call the despondent, which is the type of person out there who has kind of given up hope. They're usually a little older, and approach dating from a cynical perspective. I feel like if you're new to the game, or if you encounter a quote unquote despondent, you shouldn't let that sort of like loss of hope that they have stick on you, if that makes sense. Because despondency is not going to help anyone, and it also shows a lack of faith in my eyes. But again, maybe I just haven't dated enough and I'm not in their shoes. I also put on here the quiet majority, which is someone who's like hopeful that someone will talk to them, but taking an active approach to dating. So a lot of people go to GYC, a lot of people go to these conferences, and they're just hoping that, oh, somebody please come talk to me. Or they'll talk just amongst their friends, but they won't go outside of their circle. And then they'll go home saying, well, I didn't meet anyone. I think most people fall under that category where they take that inactive approach.
And I mean, that's seen outside of the church. It's everywhere. It's a epidemic.
It's true. I put also here that you'll find the desperate one, which is someone who's really eager to find someone. Maybe they've lowered their standards, but I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing to want to find somebody. So don't get me wrong. And, being forward does not equal desperate. I mean, I want to put that out there as clear as I possibly can. But there are people who want a rushed timeline. And if that's not for you, make sure that you set that clear so that to stay away from that if that's not for you. Another type of person that you'll find, I think, is the purposeful seeker, which is, a little self-explanatory. Somebody who's actively seeking somebody with purpose, is clear about their intentions and what they can offer, etc., etc. I think this is the best type of person. This is who you should be gunning for, if anything.
The ideal.
Because again, you're seeking purposefully. You're open and you're honest about your intentions, so that when you take an active approach, you can actually find somebody else who has that same mentality as you do. Because sitting around, there are no perks to being a wallflower in this quote unquote game, in my opinion. Any other ones?
You have your fakers.
Okay.
People that are not Christian in the church.
Who like put on a game
for a girl or a guy.
Mm-hmm.
So you have those too.
Mike?
Did you mention hurt people?
I was just gonna say that, the heartbroken.
Yes.
Which is,
and those could come in many forms, and not just somebody who's just moving around sad. It could be somebody who's very like manipulative. We said hurt people. Yeah. So it's just, that one is can be hard to spot unless you don't really know the person or they tell you. Otherwise.
I feel like those can kind of fall into the withdrawn category too, to where, if you've been hurt before, you're super cautious and you're super suspicious.
It can be like that
about someone else, about the next person. So then you're just,
or you can be the womanizer type. That hurt. I know I know guys who and girls who were heartbroken, and then after that, they went on their villain arc, and they just started going with guys and girls and doing all types of things.
Wow.
And just went crazy.
Yeah.
So now that you spoke about those types, everybody has to identify what type they are. Mm-hmm. Because if the ideal is the proactive person, but yet you're not there.
Let's say you're a newbie. You're fresh to the dating game. You just turned 18. You are brand new at Walla Walla University.
Mm-hmm. So I think you gotta, once you identify that, I feel like you identify what areas you can grow in that don't take being in an intimate relationship with the opposite sex to know, because a lot of aspects of a relationship are learned in living and relating to other people.
True.
So there are areas that you can work on there, because that doesn't negate you just because you have no experience dating.
One that I also put here was the quote unquote the pro, which is you can tell they have experience with women, or you can tell they have experience with men, and they're professional sweet talkers.
That reminds me of a video I saw earlier today. it's this trend where it's girls talking about how a guy's been with a girl, has experience, and they're throwing stuff out there like when he has 3 pillows in his house, a girl's been there. When he, and then in the comments was like when he has a trash bag in his bathroom, a girl has been there.
Yep.
So it's funny you mentioned that. So
someone cooked here.
yeah, that's how it is. Someone cooked here. I thought that was so funny, and it's so true. And as girls, you can tell that from far away.
Yep.
I don't know. Can you see the opposite of a girl?
If a guy has been there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Food and not just healthy food.
Smells funky.
No. Like
just house-wise or personal?
No, just like how you were saying, like a girl's been there. Like a girl, when a guy has been with a girl previously, another girl can tell by the things the other girl left behind that he now does. Okay. So, is there anything that guys leave behind? That girls carry? I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Like what?
Sports knowledge, more
from
they learn about
a random hoodie that doesn't fit.
There you go. Okay, a random hoodie's a good one. Yeah, random ass hoodie. I think that's
and just random, I guess, sports and life knowledge that only a guy would know.
Well, I mean, I feel like that one's harder because girls like sports and they don't necessarily have to have a boyfriend for that.
Similar vein to what you were saying, the someone cooked here meme. It was a guy playing like Madden, and then he's like, "You got to throw it in the plat." He's playing cover 2. If she's telling you that, someone cooked here.
Okay, so if she knows how to play video games
and knows the coverages, if she
I don't even know the coverages like that.
like if she can tell you that somebody's playing high, cover 2. Yeah, that's some serious knowledge.
Yeah, like about video games.
Because if Mike doesn't even know, if other guys don't even know, I barely even know. It's like,
Aaron Rodgers in here?
Like that
Tom Brady?
I guess nerdy stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Guys definitely been there.
And you'll also tell by the way she treats other men. If she's been hurt, she'll be usually jaded and
but that goes for both sexes.
Yeah, but it's still there. But
those things are harder to spot.
Sure.
Specifically, like from a dude or from a guy.
Yeah, it's true.
From a girl.
So to recap, Abby, you mentioned the preacher's kid. Who else?
The faker.
And then I mentioned the newbie, the homeschooler, the despondent, the desperate one. I put the quiet majority, the purposeful seeker, which is the ideal there, the pro, and then Mike mentioned the heartbroken. Oh, there is one that I missed.
What?
Which is the neutral one, which is the I don't even know what I want, the ambivalent.
I feel like that's the majority.
Those are hard.
That's the majority.
That's fair.
Really? I don't know.
Where they're willing to be if you're a neutral, anything can move you in any direction because you're neutral.
I feel like neutral is more like you're just you don't have a type. You just kind of go with what's there. Not really so much being indecisive. I feel like that's what neutral looks like to me.
It could that.
I feel like neutral is just okay.
Really
if this person is there, well, if you're going down a hill, you're moving.
Okay.
If
I guess it can be shown in different.
As I say, it can be shown. I feel that's
either not knowing what you want or just going with what appears.
So if you don't know what you want, then you're just stuck in one spot.
The opportunist, somebody who takes advantage of the opportunities provided to them.
Yeah.
It's real.
I wish I was like that. I'd be so much happier in life. Honestly, because
you don't have the opportunities. Otherwise, I think you would.
No, there's opportunities
here,
everywhere.
Well, yes, wow. Everywhere there are opportunities, but
everywhere here,
specifically romantically.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't pull the trigger.
I guess
you too, Abby.
I guess
if we wanted to truly date. You too, Josue, honestly.
If I wanted to truly date Michael, I guess I would really date.
Exactly.
I am not.
If we wanted to date in the church, there are people here that I think we would have
I mean, you're single, and I'm single. Why don't we date? Because we're not into each other.
Right.
Just making this very awkward for me. Continuing.
Mike, what would you say are some common pitfalls or common mistakes that one might encounter while playing the dating game?
Well, just like common mistakes, I think, are not realizing somebody's like worth, or not realizing the value in a person. Because a lot of people, and this goes back to social media too, we have this misconception of what a great person is, or who a great person should be.
Okay.
And so like when we meet people, if they don't hit these boxes, like they're not like super affluent in, I don't know, like social media, or they don't like have this type of look to them, and not necessarily saying like
if they're not traveling all the time with good pictures on social media,
stuff like that. I feel like a lot of us, we have a specific type of person that we want. And a lot of times that type of person isn't what is good, for us, because I think a lot of times we have a person in our head that we think is good for us, but God has the person who got pictures and like with us is somebody completely different. Right.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, that kind of goes back to our walk with God. And so I feel like just, one of the pitfalls we fall into is just like when, there could be a great person there who would, in the end, like make us very happy and, bring us closer to God. We don't show them any interest. And then we're all like, oh man, there's nobody here, when there's literally somebody got sent right there.
Yeah.
To talk to you. And you just kind of just leave it. And I've so many times, and today I smacked myself in the face because I'm like, what was I thinking? Why did I not pull the trigger? This girl is right here. She gave me all the signs.
Do I know her?
Huh? Yes, I've told you. I tell you all the girls.
Okay. I'm not sure who this one is
specifically, but yeah, on my last like mission trip to Colombia, I told you.
Yes.
There was a girl. So like we got a list of the people who were going to be on the mission trip with us. Right? Yeah. And like I, just kind of started like, oh, let me see what these people, let me
who they
do
are.
Some research. Yeah. So I Facebooked like a bunch of them.
That's right. As you should.
Right. And I was like, wow, this girl, she's going to be here. She's really pretty.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, that same girl I thought was really pretty was my partner for the whole mission trip.
And why did you pull the trigger?
Decisions. Thanks.
Well, there was another girl that came and I think kind of took me. But that girl that was my partner, I should have been like, man, like, what was I thinking? It could have worked out.
So
even at GYC, they mentioned her. So like, why don't you go after her? And I was just like,
so then I guess
I didn't say anything.
A common mistake is fear.
Mm-hmm.
That's a part of it. But just like, having like an idea of what you want and only believing that is going to make you happy.
There's actually a saying that says, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, which perfectly applies to this.
Exactly. Because no one is perfect.
Nobody
You're not going to find like, this person in your head that's just going to check all like the boxes for you.
It's true.
There's like even like the best person or you think has like issues. Flaws, right?
Yeah.
Or things about them that, if you knew them better, you probably wouldn't like. But you just know them through whatever relationship you have.
We mentioned last week, you have to go in with the mentality of knowing your non-negotiables because no one's going to measure up to your ideal.
Yeah. And
no one's going to be
exactly.
perfect.
So you got to have those like, obviously those non-negotiables. Like obviously this girl is like smoking like a cigar pack a day or even one cigar. That to me is like...
Cigarette.
Yeah, if she's smoking a cigarette, I'm like, no.
She smokes?
No. I'm just saying that's a non-negotiable for me. If she did smoke, no.
Yeah, that's.
Well, what if she drinks once a month?
We can work on it. Obviously, that would be something. Like if we were getting married and she was drinking like that, then it would probably not be. It would be a non-negotiable because we're gonna raise kids. I don't like.
Well, shouldn't it be a non-negotiable from the beginning? Because
I'm saying that's what I'm saying we could work on it. If
because then you could say, well, you accepted this in the beginning. Why are you talking now?
Well, he's alluding to the fact that I went into this with the understanding
that
you told me that you were going to wean off of it. That you're stepping out of it.
Well, I would be like, hey, I would be
and I
like,
haven't seen any progress.
We would have that talk, like, hey,
yeah,
I really like you. I want us to be serious. I'm thinking about, stuff, our future, right? And then if I bring that up, like, I'm looking for someone, or like, I would just say, like, one day, I want to have kids. I don't want my kids to have like alcohol in the house. I don't want them to think that drinking is acceptable. We're Seventh-day Adventists. We believe in the Bible.
See, that's another thing where it's like those little things you don't even know about a person until you're already a little bit deep into them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you met a girl who drank, let's say once a month, just like the first of the month, she likes to take herself out on a date, go out to eat, and drinks a glass of wine with her meal. That's it. That is her thing. You won't even know about that until 3, 4, 6 months in.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to have those conversations then. And then she won't find stuff out about you until that time frame too.
But even though I think it sometimes takes time to find out stuff about people, from the beginning, I think you're communicating your values. Mm-hmm. So if you're already doing that, I think you find out stuff sooner. I think it's when you don't start communicating your values from the beginning that you don't have those conversations, and they don't come up naturally because it's only once a month.
Why would they? Yeah.
So then you're surprised 3 months in, but it's like you haven't been communicating what you want along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's another pitfall. So first we mentioned just like, what was mine?
Letting perfection be the,
having
be
an
the
ideal
enemy
in your
of good.
Yeah, like having an ideal in your head, or like I said, not seeing value or the worth of someone.
Yes.
You just have this ideal in your head.
Amazing point.
Yeah, you just have the ideal in your head, and that's what you stick to. And so you just miss all these other great girls. Right?
True.
And then yours would be that's kind of why I appreciated the neutral person.
Yeah.
They just kind of like, they see this person, and they kind of, this person may show them something, and then they just kind of go with it. Or whatever. And then what did you say,
Doc? What would you say are some common pitfalls / mistakes that someone will and can avoid encountering?
I think, like I said earlier, fear of what can happen that leads you to being in your head, and then you do something dumb or you don't do anything at all. I think it also, another one is, I've alluded to that before, is just not communicating your needs, your wants, and your standards. Then if you don't communicate them along the way, it can lead to being 6 months in, and then
next thing you know,
oh, you don't believe that? What have you been doing? I think that's a huge one.
You believe in polygamy?
I think that's a huge one in the church. In the church, especially in the climate that we are spiritually, where some people are like, the good seed, some people are like the bad seed, and not everybody is living by the norms that God put in the Bible in the church. And then sometimes you can assume, well, this is a guy or a girl that's in the church. They don't drink, they don't party, they follow all the 8 laws, the ones that we preach on health. Yeah, 8 laws of health. So like those things are very easily to assume, and we can't even assume those. So that's, I think, one of the biggest. I think
that's why it's important to like center yourself like around Christ. God tells us to think on things that are pure and holy, right? And He tells us not to like talk about frivolous things. And I think that if we actually did that instead of just like gossiping or I don't know, talking about other silly stuff that doesn't even matter, then we would find those things out more easy. Because those things are just going to consume our conversation. Our conversation. We know we're talking about God. We're having Bible study with each other. Those things will come up. Like, oh, you believe in that, really? And then that'll come up.
Like, for example, how would not believing in the Holy Spirit come up naturally in a conversation?
I think
isn't that weird?
I think it would only be through like a Bible study or just like a random comment where you're like, oh, the Holy Spirit told me this. And then
that person stays awkwardly quiet.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like you kind of.
We ran into somebody who doesn't believe in the Holy Spirit a couple of weeks ago at a funeral.
Oh, yes.
That was interesting.
Yeah, it's still
It's interesting.
I'm still heartbroken by that.
Yeah. Some that I thought of, some common pitfalls are that people can encounter in the dating game is that love will fall into your lap.
That's
Where
a big one.
you have to be proactive about dating. You can't go into it in neutral. You have to, like you say, you can't expect things to just happen. If you don't put in the work, you're not going to get the work out. You know how Ellen White in the Bible tells us, it's our work in conjunction with God's blessing that, provides success. We have to put in the work of meeting people, talking to people, making friends, preparing ourselves mentally, knowing what we want, and actually talking to the opposite gender, actually talking to people that we're attracted to. Because if you don't do that, and if you don't actually verbalize your intent, you're not going to go anywhere.
And even if that person, because God can put someone in your life, right? Like he can just have circumstances change where people all of a sudden are working at the same job you are. And I know there's they say you're not supposed to date your coworkers, but I mean just but I'm just even if you still even if God puts them there and sets everything right that would make it work, and you still don't actually do something, then it's still not going to work.
You know what that reminds me of? Just to use a sports analogy, Ben Simmons. You can get a pass down low, right under the bucket.
Oh boy!
You can have a free layup, but you gotta still put it up. You still gotta shoot your shot, even if you're given a layup.
Every shot you don't take, you miss, or you
miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes, you miss every shot you don't take.
I think another common pitfall and a mistake that people can fall into is what I call the first one syndrome, which is you only look for the quote unquote one and then you ignore everybody else. So then you're like Michael was saying, you only seek for that perfection and then you start ignoring everybody else. So it's well, if I don't see something about you that I don't like immediately, I don't think you could be my husband, or I don't think you could be my wife, and then all of a sudden you discard it. Or thinking, and again, this may be controversial, but thinking that God only has that one person for me.
Yeah.
And
I think that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier a little bit.
Yeah. So if it doesn't work out with that one person, there goes my life, there goes my sanity. There, you can fall into that, what I call the first one syndrome.
Or it could also be, in the sense, putting all your eggs in that basket, or putting all your value in that person. Because
in what they think of you.
If it doesn't work out, the reason that you crumble and fall and you think life is pointless is because you put all your value on this person. You forget that you are a person of value in and of yourself before this person came into your life. So it's easy. That's an easy mistake that you can do in the church, outside of the church, in love, romantic relationships in general, to prioritize the person so much that you make them your world.
Yeah.
And I think, another one just that's similar to that is in value is that when you're dating someone, or when you're just contemplating dating and just talking to other women, don't go into it thinking that the women who let you talk to them are doing you a favor. It's not a privilege. This is, you have something of worth too. It's not they're, allowing you to date them or something like that. It goes both ways.
Exactly. You have to think of yourself as not completely this way, but you have to think of yourselves as
as a valuable person.
Yeah,
God looks at you.
Yeah, you don't think of yourself as someone who's because they always say, "Oh, she's out of your league," or "He's out of your league." We should stop that language. Honestly, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the person that, if you're the person that is, not in the league, it doesn't help you, obviously, but it also doesn't help the person who is out of your league, supposedly, because then it looks like they're like they don't have anybody else, so they can't get the person that's in their league, so they're just settling.
And it perpetuates the whole "I'm better than you."
Exactly. It just makes it like you don't have something to offer this person equally. Now, if we're talking about looks, okay, fine. Obviously, there's some really good-looking people out there that not everybody in the world is like Hollywood good-looking.
Yeah.
Not everybody's Brad Pitt.
Exactly. Not everybody's.
I mean, Michael has
Jolie.
that benefit, but I don't.
Oh, I think
I personally, I appreciate don't fall into that.
Make me feel better about myself today. No, but yeah, like I don't have a problem with that. But I mean, it's just like if we're looking at the whole person,
sure.
Like, oh man, this person, they're so good with speaking, or they're so good with this, or they have like this great career or whatever. Like,
and I think if I don't know, if anything, I feel like getting rid of the word settling, for me, we need to get rid of, because sometimes there might be a really attractive person gets together with a person that's maybe not as attractive at them, and then other people will like, they settled for this person. And it's like, no, they didn't. They chose
it's too simplistic.
They chose this person, and it's lowering the other less attractive person's value.
The surface is the least valuable thing about a person.
Although, let's be honest, that only works from the women, like a cute woman, to a ugly dude. Because if you're an ugly dude, just generally speaking,
you better have a lot of money.
No. If you pull a really beautiful woman,
you have a lot of money. Seriously.
Yeah. People will say, "Oh,
beautiful woman
for the money.
Life is easy."
Or you have a great personality.
But there are
you got a lot of money.
Between guys ourselves, we'd say, "Man, that guy can pull." So you just you dap him up.
You got money. You got influence or something.
What's good?
You can't be ugly and not have anything.
Whereas if a really good-looking guy marries a, let's say, not as conventionally attractive girl, people don't say he settled. You say he found love.
See, no, I think hear people
that's
say
why
that.
I think you should not get rid of that whole notion of like polling, or just have a general term of they found love and they're happy.
Period. Yeah.
Because it perpetuates the whole value of like they have more value because they have this to offer and
but
this other person has less. And it's like, no, like if they are in a relationship together, it's because they chose to be together.
And that person may think he lucked out, that he's the luckiest man alive.
Come on.
And you're like, oh, he settled. To him, that person is like, I can't
Gold.
believe. Oh my gosh, God, thank you so much.
We as humans, we are package deals. We are not just a feature.
Exactly.
So, we are not just our looks.
Exactly.
As men, we are not just our height, or not just our money.
Exactly.
Or not just
we're not just all like these individual things. We're a package deal. So we got to get rid of this whole settling notion, because it doesn't help our self-esteem.
Agreed. I think another pitfall. Sorry, Mike, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, like, there was a guy, he was like just an average guy. And some guy asked him, like, or like he made a comment about Tom Brady. And, Tom Brady's super successful dude, right? Got everything. But the guy was like, well, and Tom Brady's won 7 championships and everything, right? Hall of Famer, beautiful wife, everything, good looking. But he's like, well, can Tom Brady, do my job, right?
What was his job?
It doesn't matter what it is. Can he do it?
No.
Exactly.
Ha!
In your face, Tom. Can you fix my car?
Can you weld?
Yeah.
Exactly.
We all have something that makes us us, that's irreplaceable.
And we should lean into that.
Everybody has a purpose.
Amen. To kind of wrap up, unless you guys have other common pitfalls, I have 2 more here. I think a common pitfall, specifically for those who aren't, or should say for those who are new and inexperienced, is physicality. If you've never been experienced physical intimacy before, whether that's like hugs, holding hands, caressing, things like that, appropriate caressing, and that kind of things, it's easy to just kind of let yourself go and not put any sort of limitations or any sort of boundaries there. So I would say to be tactful, be careful. You know, everybody's limits are different, but there are some like you said, there's real pitfalls. Rules. And I think it is a pitfall where, yes, it is exciting, but physicality carries unseen, prolonged consequences. Slippy that you don't that you only realize after you've been like after you've partaken into it. So be tactful, be careful there.
That makes me think of, I think the biggest pitfall as Christians, I think, is not seeking God to show us how He wants to do things, to approach dating. Because, like, let's say we're single now, right? And then we get into a relationship. And we immediately go to what we've seen on social media and think that's how our relationship is going to look. Instead of both going together to the Word, to let God lead you as to how your relationship should develop. That's usually a big thing. And then also if you're single but you're not in a relationship, not seeking God to show you how to actually be proactive in a Christian-like way, because then you can be like, oh, I'm proactive, I'm on Bumble, I'm on Tinder. It's like those things aren't Christian. So it's like it could be proactiveness not in the right way. So I think not going to God and asking Him how to do stuff is the biggest common pitfall that we all encounter.
And then lastly, I have on here the pitfall in thinking that you're in it alone, and that you have to go through all of this alone. So I think Jesus is an amazing wingman in that he can...
Yes, the best.
he can help you navigate through situations that you never thought you could in the dating arena, and I feel like He will keep you and guide you through all of it. So getting and making sure that you are focusing on Christ and always noticing that He's with you will avoid you into thinking, oh, I have to go through this alone and it's hard and impossible, and you can fall into the despondent category.
Yes, that is a very big thing to remember. Like, you're not alone.
And I think as humans, we talked about all these categories. I think we have different stages of life. And in a certain time, you probably were despondent, and now you're neutral. So, like, we can fluctuate through these types ourselves. It's not like once you're one, you were there forever. It's like, no, it's all a journey.
It's true. You start at newbie, but you keep progressing. You don't stay at newbie. Unless, hopefully you don't stay at newbie.
Then you're just ignorant. That's a category too.
Willful ignorance. I mean, does that fall into another one?
I think that's a category.
That's a category of its own. It's a good point. Willful ignorant. Hey, Mike, I think heartbreaks and disappointments are bound to happen in the dating game. How should we deal with those, and how do we bounce back?
Well, using the Bible, because it is such a good source of knowledge and wisdom, and just like every problem that you have, there's not only examples of those problems that those people went through, but there's also solutions and ways to get about them.
True.
David is one of my favorite characters in the Bible, and he did a lot of stuff that was messed up.
Yeah, he did.
He suffered through, obviously, heartbreak. He suffered through being stabbed in the back and just like all types of stuff. But one thing he always did was he went and talked about it.
With JC.
With Jesus Christ, with God. He said in Psalm 145:18, it says, "The Lord is nigh unto all them that call upon Him, to all that call upon Him in truth." So coming to God, God is there. And He says, coming to Him with the truth, though. Completely like revealing everything.
Yeah.
Raw. Just like, raw, just like, unshielding every feeling you have, just coming to Him. So God wants us to come to Him about the truth. I feel like a lot of times with people, we kind of have to like shield everything about ourselves, even when we want to like tell someone stuff that happened. I feel like, when we come to people, because people we judge, even though if we say we don't, we naturally judge.
Yeah.
But God doesn't, I won't say God doesn't judge, but he sees the situation completely. And so he understands and he empathizes with us, right? And then in 19 it says, he will fulfill the desire of them that fear him. He will also hear their cry and will save them.
Amen.
And so
that's comforting, bro.
Yes, very comforting, because like, he's the only one that can, first of all, like he wants us to tell him everything. Like he doesn't want us to hide everything, even though he knows, but he wants us to talk. Like, isn't that interesting? Even though he knows everything, he still wants us to talk to him.
Because it says that prayer doesn't bring God down to us. It brings us up to him.
Exactly. And so like God, he understands that like talking about things is not for him, it's for us. And so like he understands like mentally how that works. And so David did that a lot. He cried out to God. He wrote a whole book about it, all his problems. And he went through a lot of stuff. So he said, God, he will hear our cry and he will save us. And so when we're heartbroken, that should be like the first thing we should do. Like just go talk to God about it. First of all, because he wants to hear the whole truth. You don't have to hide anything from him because he loves you, right? He's already seen what happened, first of all. So he's not like you need to hide anything from him. And, he's going to like not just, listen to you when you cry. There's something about crying that draws God closer to us. Like it's like how mom, if she sees your son try, if she sees her son or her daughter crying, the mom immediately unless you didn't do something bad, you get beat, then you probably gonna be crying for that. But like if she sees her son crying, she's gonna go and run to him, right? And so like God is like that. I feel like he leans in more closer when we cry, but he saves us. He doesn't just leave us there and like passes us on the back, says everything's gonna be okay. No, he's going to improve the situation.
Amen.
And so like for me, that's like a big thing, because I can't trust people. And sometimes stuff like it takes a long time to get over things. But like when you're with God, like that process can speed up, right? You can like quickly, move on to something else because, God is there and he's going to save you and he loves you and hears your cry. And so like for me, when you're heartbroken, go talk about it, and not just to people, but to like God. Talk to God about it as if he was a friend, like he says in the Bible.
I like it. Doc, how should we deal with heartbreak and how do we bounce back?
I think apart from talking to God is the most important one, and seeking help is also accepting it, letting it come. I feel like a lot of the times we are in denial, and I mean I know that's a stage of grief, denial for sure. But the closer or the faster we work intentionally to get through all of that and accepting it, the faster we can bounce back. And if throughout the whole time that you were dating or whatever, if you were like true to yourself, intentional of who you are from strength as to like this is how I want to come off as, I feel like the heartbreak is less because at the end of the day they didn't take anything from you, because your value you never lost, you didn't lose sight of it. I feel like the biggest heartbreak sometimes, not all the time, can be from losing sight of who you are and who God is in your life. Also, but then there's like real heartbreak of like, someone really breaking your heart, divorce, death, and just
infidelity.
Yeah, those like are really big ones, and they can happen. But seeking that help in God and knowing that it might hurt for a while, that's okay too. Like something that we always.
You're not any weaker because of it.
Yeah, something that we always say in behavioral health is just ride the wave. That like this is something that happened to you, but it's soon gonna pass. Like just like ride it, because soon it's gonna die out, and another day is gonna come. So just day by day, talking to God and just riding that wave, I think, is the best way.
One of the hold on. Get back to me. Get back to. Well, I don't have to do that. Mentioning David.
I can go, but
okay, go ahead.
Yeah. One thing I will say is to, like, kind of you guys say, rely on Jesus. Great days will come. But if we know anything about rain, is that we need it to produce growth. Everything green around us is a product of rain. So, like Ellen White says a lot, we need to let the vicissitudes and the hard times in our life produce patience and produce more trust in God. She specifically uses that word in reference to David's life, specifically when he was persecuted by Saul. I think another way to kind of handle it and deal with it, and as you kind of come out of it, and as in respects to bouncing back, is to not put all men or all women in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is going to hurt you like your ex. And to allow yourself to grow and not embitter yourself. Don't let that experience or that episode define who you are and define your experience. Stick to the plan. Stick to God's love and God's definition of who you are, and then that's loved and that's important, and that's someone full of value. So when you come out of that, you don't have to carry that baggage. You can learn from it, but you don't have to carry the baggage of like, oh, I'm a broken person who nobody's gonna want, and now I'm lacerated and I'm used goods and things like that, because God doesn't think of you that way. And neither should you think of it yourself. And also it opens you up to being the person that you were prior to, because again, you're not letting that define you, and you're not letting that mar who you are. And then lastly, I would say to take some time apart, regain God's vision for you, and learn more of his love for you. Because the more that you focus on how he looks at things and how he looks at you, like the song says, turn your eyes upon Jesus, right? Because the things of earth, your pain, your hurt, will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace.
Amen. And kind of just going off of what you were saying just now, how like we don't have to carry that baggage, right? So going back to David is such a fantastic person to study because, he's the best king. Most people say he was probably like the best king that Israel ever had. Solomon was good too, but David, I think a lot of people would agree. But like when you go to 2 Samuel chapter 12,
lineage was goated,
and they had tons of problems, man. Like you won't even know. It was like, you want to talk about Game of Thrones? That was Game of Thrones right there. 2 Samuel 12, 2 Samuel 11, David and Bathsheba, right? Bathsheba. We go to 2 Samuel 12. The deed has been found out. David has been outed by Samuel the prophet, Nathaniel the prophet. And obviously they conceived a son, right? And when you read in 2 Samuel chapter 12, the son is sick and David is mourning, right? And you can read it in like the last few verses. He says,
could you repeat the verse, please?
In verse 21, 2 Samuel 12, verses 20, verse 18. 2 Samuel verse 12, 18, it says, no, not even that verse. Hold up. 2 Samuel 12, 18 says, and it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died, and the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, behold, while the child was yet alive, we spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How will he then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead? Because at that time, if you read earlier, David is mourning or praying. Not mourning, he's praying. He's like, he's doing all this type of stuff. He's like, save the child, God, right? And then verse 19 says, but when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said unto his servants, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. Then here's the interesting thing that David did. Verse 20, then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his apparel and came to the house of the Lord and worshipped. Then he came to his own house, and when he required, they set bread before him, and he did eat. This is right after his child died. All right. my parents have experienced childbirth or child death before. Like my youngest child died, or not my youngest child, my parents' youngest child died. My sister died like right after birth, and that really affected my mom as to the point where she didn't want to try for kids again. So that's why it's just me and Janelle. And my dad was angry with God, right? And it hurt for a long time. Okay, but this is David now. In verse 21, he says an interesting thing. He says, or verse 22, he says an interesting thing. He says, and he said, while the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, who can tell whether God will be gracious to me that the child might live, right? And then 23, he's like, but now he is dead. Therefore should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. And then 24 says, and David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and went in unto her and lay with her, and they bare another son. But to me, that's like crazy because like he just experienced something so heart-wrenching, right? But because like he had a relationship with God, or he like, you know, he had come to accept, you know, obviously he did the wrong thing, but he had said it right there, like, how can I tell whether God will be gracious unto me, right? Yeah. But he was able to, because of his faith and his trust in God, move away from that tragic event and put it to rest, and then go and have another child, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like, even though obviously they're different things, we can use that same principle for relationships, because there's going to be a relationship for a lot of people that is just going to end. It's dead. You're going to be pining over for a while, like, oh man, God, I want this to work out. And then something happens where it clears in, or it has to end, right? And what do a lot of people do? We get into that, like, despondent, what you're talking about, right? We get that baggage. But if you have God, you don't need that baggage. David's like, the child is dead.
We can avoid that.
We can avoid that because God is there. And then what was he able to do now that he was over that? He comforted his wife, and they had another child. Now, obviously, not saying like for people to, you know, obviously we understand that there's going to be mourning and grieving, but you know, you don't have to have that like baggage, so to speak. You understand what I'm saying?
You don't have to let the hurt control
you. Exactly.
Because I would think that David still, it hurt.
Oh, of course.
His child died, but you know, he knows life goes on.
Yeah.
And like through your hurt, you keep moving forward.
Exactly. But it wasn't like, you know, he spent a whole year and then, you know, try for another child. He tried for another child literally like the next day. And so that same principle can apply to relationships. Like, okay, this
not
died,
the next day, but
you know, and we know, not saying you just go jump into the next relationship, but you can move forward in your life still. You don't have to be controlled by.
So like baggage. If we spend even a little time just to extrapolate the text there, in verse 20 it says, so David arose from the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
He couldn't go any lower.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? He was already
there
at you know, at the very, very bottom.
Yeah.
Not just physically, but emotionally as well.
Yeah.
He says he washed and anointed himself. What does that tell you? He took it as a rebirth.
Exactly.
It was like an acceptance and a moving on of, you know,
reach to me.
and what's interesting is it says he anointed himself. What I read into here also is that he kind of accepted God's decision to not let the baby live. So passing that grief through that step of acceptance. And then it says, and he went to the house of the Lord and worshipped. So once
you see the steps.
Yes.
The steps to recovery.
Exactly. Right, he went and took himself, he accepted it, and then he went and he understood. And God, he said, and he worshipped. And I think through that worship came comfort for David.
Exactly.
Because in the house of the Lord, in God's presence, you find that comfort. You find that, what do you call it? That peace that he needed.
Exactly.
And
you can't tell me losing a child
worship doesn't necessarily mean singing and praising the Lord in song and being excited. You can worship God through somber and through
reflection,
moments too.
Exactly.
So, and it's a good example of how you have to take time to feel the pain, to sit with your emotions. I feel like that's something that we don't know how to do. We just kind of want to be like, denial, keep moving. But before we can even move or ride the wave or whatever, we need to sit with our emotions.
To accept it.
And go through all the stages of grief, whether it be 1 or 2 days, but like just give yourself time to just...
Or 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months.
Bumming it, like intentionally.
Yes.
Even if the first day, it's like, you know what the heck you doing.
Or you be like David and just be like, why? Why do I need to? Not saying you don't hurt, but like, he's like, it's dead. It's not going to come back to me. He moved on.
Yeah.
And he worshiped God and anointed himself and accepted it. Especially if you know their relationship was not godly, then you should know for real. Like, hey. And then what happened? Something right around the corner. He went and was blessed with another son who was... was it?
Yeah, he had
No, it wasn't Solomon.
Bathsheba is Solomon's kid.
Yeah, no, but he wasn't the oldest,
Bathsheba
though.
is the mom.
I'm sorry,
we're talking about, like, who was the kid that they had after the one that
I thought it was Solomon.
It was Solomon?
Yes.
Yeah.
It specifically says in verse 24.
Solomon.
And I think that's
she bore a son.
So beautiful
and
because
he called him Solomon.
Yeah. God redeems Bathsheba. Like she is literally taken, her husband is murdered, and he gets the privilege of having.
You know what? I think there's a little bit of David redemption in there too.
Both of them.
Oh, David had the most. He needed
both
the most
them, but
redemption.
I feel like, if anything, the girl too. This woman was literally taken and molested, Mike.
Right.
I don't think it was so much her fault as it was David's. David's the king. You can't refuse the king.
That's what she's saying.
Yeah.
She had no rights.
Oh, you're saying redemption in like terms of
like she was wronged.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
she didn't just become another notch in his roster or another of his women in his palace,
concubine,
but rather she became the mom of Solomon, which was
the wisest man that ever lived.
Yeah,
was she queen then?
Yes.
Was she? Did she become queen?
I mean, Michael was.
She wasn't just some
the primary
concubine.
And there was Michael, and then there was Abigail, and then he took Bathsheba.
It's an amazing story, man.
Yeah. And then just to kind of finish the verse here, it says, then he went to his house after he worshipped, and he requested, and they set food before him, and he ate. What does that tell you? Refreshment.
Exactly.
He needed to fill himself again, and he needed to, regain his energies. And this is more of a physical thing too. Don't neglect yourself physically when you're going through something like this.
Because when you're going through like the struggle like that, a lot of times during heartbreak, what do we not do? We don't eat.
Yeah, I can't eat. I can't.
Exactly.
sleep.
You lose your appetite and everything.
You don't shower.
And so that's crazy how fast he turned that around, isn't it?
Yeah. And then 21 says, and then his servants said unto him, what is this that you have done? You fasted and wept for the child while he was alive. But when the child died, you arose and ate food. And like you said, verse 22, while the child was alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, who can tell whether the Lord is gracious unto me that that the child may live. Verse 23, but now he is dead. Why should I fast? You know what that reminds me of?
What?
How Jesus said, don't fast while I'm here.
Exactly.
So, fast.
The bride is here. It's time to party. As it were. No, time to rejoice. Time to be happy.
Exactly. Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. I think that there's also a little hope when he says, I shall go to him. Because it says, you know what? I messed up and his fate is because of me. Even then, God is gracious enough to, at the end of my days, when he comes again, reunite us.
Exactly.
So, like,
that's
David
a good point. I didn't think of it like that. That's awesome.
Sense of repentance, too, where he's like, you know what? I have to suffer my consequences right now. So, I mean, that goes to show if you're the aggressor, if you're the cheater, if you're the the one who violated the relationship, redemption is there for you, too. And while it may hurt, and while there are consequences to the actions, God does not cast us aside like he didn't cast David aside. And like I said, verse 24, then David comforted Bathsheba. Notice who's doing the comforting now. It's David who's doing the comforting. And he went and lay with her. So she bore a son, and he called his name Solomon. Now the Lord loved him, and he sent word by the hand of Nathan the prophet. So he called his name Jedediah because of the Lord. So what's interesting about Solomon there is that your pain can be bookended by something even greater than anybody would have ever thought.
God does so much more
than David know that he was going to be the wisest man that ever lived?
No.
Did Bathsheba know? No. But God, encapped that story.
That's an amazing thing.
That they couldn't have imagined with something more beautiful.
Exactly.
Than,
out of their sin, because they didn't deserve anything, especially David. He did not deserve to have anybody on the throne after that. He was almost cast aside.
Exactly.
Because that's what Nathaniel said. He's like, you pronounce judgment on yourself.
Right, that's what David said.
Yeah, exactly, David said. And that's what was going to happen. And so David, he knew. I was like, oh, okay, I really messed up. I need to go to God. And God, out of that, gave him something even more beautiful. That's amazing. I don't think I could do that.
In
other words,
hurt
me so bad, I'm gonna do something better.
That's grace.
That's God's
mercy.
That's crazy.
Optimism.
That's beautiful.
Grace. Yeah, it's just crazy.
So it goes to show, though you may experience heartbreak, there's a beautiful ending that God has for you.
More than you even imagine.
Like Abby said, if you ride the wave, and even if it's because of you, God can have redemption for you on the other side of that wave too, if you follow.
And he promises redemption.
And he promises redemption.
He works together for good all things to those who
love him and to those who are called according to his purpose.
So even if you fall and you're going to suffer a consequence, he's going to redeem you. And it's something that's going to come out of it. And that's the thing. Like,
relationships and dating are never going to be black and white. You're sometimes going to be the one hurting, and you're sometimes going to be the one hurting others. And because it's not black and white, you need to give grace to yourself and give grace to others too, knowing that they're sinners just as much as you are. And in doing so, you can learn to see other people the way that God sees them.
Exactly.
So that, we can...
When that person does come, you're not like, oh, they not have all these boxes checked off. No, you can be like, man, this person... Thank you, God. This person's great. It's a godly person.
And also, you don't look at other people as she's used. You don't look at him as he's, he used to be a playboy. He used to, you don't judge someone by their past necessarily. You judge them by
who they
their fruits and who they are.
Exactly.
All that to say that when it comes to dating, there will be some fun. There will be some highs and there will be some lows. You have to go into the quote unquote game with a mentality that God's going to carry you through. Exactly. That God is the one that's going to provide the person. That God's the one that's going to walk you through the dating stages
and make you into the person.
And also, he's going to help you avoid the common pitfalls. And when heartbreak does come, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. And like I said last week, if we stick to our standards and the way that we want to be perceived and communicate that, no matter what the dating game is or what's expected in social media, like, you're going to continue to be true to yourself, to who you are, who God says you are, and you might double text.
Lord. Double text.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's true. Season 2, guys.
Depends on the person.
Season 2.
See, I don't know.
Finish your thought.
I just think it's just like, if it's coming from a desperate place, I feel like sometimes people can feel it. But sometimes people don't know how to differentiate, and they just say, "Oh, they texted twice. They must be desperate."
True. Mike, would you mind closing us out in prayer?
Yes, sir. All right, dear Lord, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to be able to, discuss these things on a platform where we can share, about, just things that, really shape our lives, relationships, help us to remember that through the highs and lows of life and relationships, that you carry us through all of them, and that
Amen.
we don't have to be, concerned of our, future or, potential partners, Lord. But we know that, as long as we wrap ourselves in your love and in your principles of love, of what it truly means to love and value and see people for the worth, that, we will always feel satisfied in life and feel blessed with whoever we, eventually meet and come to, be in a relationship with, like that. And so continue just to be with us in this podcast, and that people that, hear and listen, that, there's things that they can take from it, and, that they can be blessed and, have a sense of, I don't know, whatever it is they, are working on or need to have, thought about or refreshed in their minds. So, just again, thank you for this platform and this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.